I'll just mention, I don't know, Lewis or Berkeley, if you have been to a Living in the Path course, but it's basically a set of, it falls somewhere between, I guess, Discovering Buddhism and Basic Program, the advanced study. And it's mainly, Living in the Path, basically a set of courses on practical advice that Lama Zopa Rinpoche, our guru, has given for all his students in a very experiential way, right? So the classes are basically, they're not taught by me. I just facilitate the classes, and the classes are composed of videos from Lama Zopa's own, words, basically, right? So these are Lama Zopa Rinpoche speaking and showing us the way, right? So the idea is to basically make Rinpoche available to as many people in a first-hand way, right? Rather than second-hand through teachers and so forth and so on. So that's the Living in the Path class. And this is one of the first two courses called Bodhichitta Mindfulness. And so Rinpoche started, hi Shayla. So I was just mentioning that the Living in the Path classes are basically, composed of Lama Zopa Rinpoche himself speaking to us through videos. And these are taken from retreats and various other teachings that he has given over the years. And the one we're looking at today and over the next few weeks is Bodhichitta Mindfulness. And this is about how to, so there's a lot of mindfulness classes and meditations and things like in Western Buddhism now, right? And this is, which is, that mindfulness is basically on more about calming the mind, right? Bodhichitta mindfulness is something that Rinpoche, something that Rinpoche started talking about. This, I was at the retreat. This was, I think, in 2009, maybe, at the Light of the Path, the first Light of the, or second Light of the Path retreat, maybe. And it's about how to live our daily life with bodhicitta, with great compassion, and dedicating all our actions to the benefit of all beings, right? And how to bring to fruition our ultimate aims through bodhicitta, right? So that's what this course is about. And so since a couple of people joined late, I will send via chat again 2 documents that will be handy for all of you. And the first document is a kind of a booklet that FPMT put together that summarizes, the types of things we will talk about and how to live our daily life by dedicating all our actions for others, right? How to dedicate our daily life while eating, sleeping, taking a bath, going to the toilet, whatever else we do in our daily life, how to do that, right? And what to think. And the second document is essentially it's a transcript of some of the videos that we will watch. And so sometimes some people have difficulty understanding Rinpoche's words, especially after the stroke. So that's why the transcripts are now made available, right? So that's a second document, Cultivating Mindfulness of Bodhicitta. That's that document. Okay, so maybe we'll get started, and then with our prayers, as we normally do. So let me share the screen. Okay. All right. So let's start with our standard prayers. So we'll do it in English. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Okay. So as I mentioned, this course is about Bodhichitta Mindfulness. And before we get started with, I wanted to give an introduction. And this book, by the way, it's available for free. It's called Bodhichitta Attitude from Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive. And this book is essentially the Bodhi, his Rinpoche's advice on how to practice Bodhichitta mindfulness. So if you wish, you can just look online, and it might be available as a PDF form. I'm not sure. I got it when it was originally published, and or they will send it to you, and if you want to give a donation, you can. So he's talking about here. He said, and why, I'm just trying to set the motivation for why we need to have Bodhichitta mindfulness, right? And that's what he's doing here at the beginning in the introduction. And the title of the section is Everything Depends on Your Attitude. So he says, I thought to start by explaining how to practice normally in daily life and begin by giving a general understanding of how to start the day. First, I want to mention something Lama Tsongkhapa explained in his mind training poem. I received oral transmission from Kyabje Lama Rinpoche in Dharamshala and Lama Yeshe, and so forth and so on. So Lama Tsongkhapa mentioned, so this is the part of the poem that, and some of you are familiar with this. He says, if you don't purify negative karma and defilements quicker and quicker, being totally under the control of very forceful karma, even though you know this is happiness, that is happiness, you are powerless to choose. Even though you know this is suffering and that is suffering, you are powerless to free yourself. Therefore, reflect that action and result are non-betraying. Look now to choose between white and black karma. From this day, take care not to create a negative karma. From this night, attend to virtue. What better can you do with this life than take care not to create negative karma, but instead create virtue all the time? White and black actions depend on good and bad thoughts. If you have good thoughts, even the paths and grounds are good. If you have bad thoughts, even the paths and grounds are bad. Everything depends on your attitude. So Rinpoche now says, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying that each one of us is totally under the control of very hard, forceful, powerful karma. And if we don't purify all of this as quickly as possible, even though we know what is happiness and what is suffering, we are not free to choose. Somehow we just have to go through sicknesses, relationship problems, business problems, and whatever other experiences, powerless to immediately free ourselves from them. Once an action is done, karma is created. If the action is non-virtuous, the result will definitely be suffering. If the action is virtuous, the result will definitely be happiness. Therefore, we need to reflect on this and then abandon negative karma and practice white karma. Lama Tsongkhapa warns us that we need to take care not to create a negative karma, like being careful of the food we eat, protecting ourselves from a poisonous snake, or taking care when traveling on a very dangerous road, or around anything that is harmful and would cause sickness or death. Then specifically, Lama Tsongkhapa says, what better can you do with this life than take care not to create negative karma, but instead create virtue all the time? And Rinpoche said, this is what we need to do all the time. He says, for example, so when and then Lama Tsongkhapa says, everything depends on your mind. So Rinpoche now explains that. He says, for example, if you have a bodhicitta motivation, and now he starts talking about bodhicitta mindfulness, the good heart benefiting other sentient beings, you can actualize the realizations of the Mahayana path, the 5 paths and 10 grounds. If you don't have a good heart, then even if you have renunciation and realization of emptiness, you can only enter the lower path, the lesser vehicle path, and the highest you can achieve is the lower nirvana. That is it. You cannot become a bodhisattva and collect skies of merit in every second with every single action of body, speech, and mind, as well as purifying all the heavy negative karmas collected in this and past lives. Without bodhicitta, the good heart benefiting others, you cannot achieve enlightenment and do perfect work without the slightest mistake for sentient beings, liberating every one of them from the oceans of samsaric suffering. Also, the self-cherishing thought makes your attitude bad. It interferes with your achieving the realization of lower nirvana, the 37 aids to enlightenment, and the 5 paths. Use yourself as an example. So far, because of following the self-cherishing thought from beginningless rebirths up to now, instead of practicing bodhicitta and benefiting others, you have not been able to achieve the path to liberation or any other realizations. You have not even achieved the very first realization of impermanence and death, which makes the mind become Dharma. Self-cherishing interferes with your achieving enlightenment and liberating numberless beings, each realm. Not only that, it also interferes with your achieving liberation from samsara, a good rebirth and happiness in all your future lives. The self-cherishing thought even creates many obstacles to achieving the happiness in this life. And he finally finishes with, today's self-cherishing thought doesn't allow your actions right now to become a cause of enlightenment, liberation from samsara, or the happiness of future lives. It creates so many obstacles, even for the happiness of this life, whether it is traveling, business, or whatever. It makes things so difficult. From self-cherishing come attachment to this life, anger, and all other delusions. That is how self-cherishing becomes such a great obstacle for the success of this life. All the obstacles come from the self-cherishing thought. Since everything depends on our attitude, the idea here is to start each day with bodhicitta motivation, not only during this, well, he says, not only during this retreat, but generally in our practice in daily life. So that's the introduction, kind of the, what is meant by bodhicitta mindfulness. The motivation for practicing bodhicitta mindfulness is removing self-cherishing thought, right? I mean, we know what it is. We know why it's caused. We know emptiness. We know suffering. We know the cause of suffering, all that stuff, but we still haven't achieved, as Rinpoche says, even this most basic realization, right? And so these practices of a bodhicitta mindfulness are the antidotes to the self-cherishing thought. And so now he will talk about, now the first video is about, how to start with that, right? So let me share my screen again, and at least, okay. Okay, and then you can see in your, you will see the transcript where it says transcript of video 1 the second document that I sent. So let me do this. Let me share my screen. Share screen. Safari, share. Okay, so you should be able to see this now. Let me make this big. Can you see this? Rinpoche speaking? Okay.
Mentioned the sutra teachings by Buddha, and so that some of these mindfulness practices, of course, normally we can do it. That's incredible, but especially during retreat, I think it's when you do your personal retreat or the retreat, these things you have a practice that's extremely worthwhile. Mind to keep in the bodhicitta, Yes, of course. There's a renunciation. It's a right view. There's you can relate to many things. You can do activities of the different but especially Bodhichitta. So everything, whatever activity you do with the Bodhichitta. That's the wise, that's the most wise life. Most beneficial life. So as his Dharma often says, that mm, 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 mm. You want to follow delusion, maybe I put this way, you want to, as Dalai Lama said, you see, you want to follow delusion, it harms to yourself, it harms others. It harms others, means numberless sentient beings. Others don't want to, but numberless sentient beings. One thing is that it doesn't. If you follow self-cherishing thought, for example, then it doesn't allow to have realization with the Bodhichitta. You see, to have good heart. So it doesn't allow to generate good heart. Totally seeing only happiness for oneself, only working for oneself. You see that. So whatever you do, it's only for yourself. So anyway. So then you see, when they're unable to generate Bodhicitta, so then they may say, then you see they unable to complete the merits of wisdom, virtue, and the minor path, you see, unable to into the minor path. They're also unable to achieve the exalted, the minor path, higher path, you see. So then you see, you have all those incredible wisdom, direct examination, and all those many qualities to be able to offer extensive benefit to sentient beings. So you don't have that. So unbelievable. So you see, anyway, so you can't do the extensive benefit to sentient beings. You can't offer deep benefits. That then the cannot complete the path, cannot receive full enlightenment. Cannot seize the developments and cannot complete the path, cannot receive full enlightenment. So therefore, can't do perfect work to sentient beings, bring them to enlightenment. You see. So that's so then even from that side, you see so the sentient beings have to suffer for a long time. So it's that how it harms, So that's one way. By following delusion, you see it harms to oneself, harms all sentient beings. So there's direct harm, indirect harm, you see. So then if you think from life to life, then you see after life, you see. So that's where you see harms the beings think about life. So that Then if you say, so you want to practice Dharma, you want to follow Bodhichitta, good heart, and then it's happiness to yourself, and happiness, total opposite, you see. Happiness to oneself and happiness towards all the sentient beings, towards others. And that happiness is like that. This, as I mentioned before, then they say, the happiness this life, you see, this, without clinging for that, it just comes. Even when you have a good heart, you see, without even thinking of the happiness, it just comes. And then happiness, future lives, liberation from samsaric, full enlightenment, all that, you see. Then as well as all those 4 different levels of happiness, you're able to cause, so they say other sentiments, the number of sentiments they receive from you, so that. So how you button by practicing good heart, so even for yourself, and day-to-day life, day-to-day life, moment-to-moment life, there's happiness, comfortable life. Comfortable life is a life without fear, depression, guilty, all these things, all this key package, Yeah, all this doesn't happen, you see. So you don't engage because with good heart, you see. So happiness to you, happiness now, and happiness like sun shining in this world, happiness in the future for yourself, like sun shining, you see, in your future lives. So that, and then also come, see, bring peace in the world, and that, you see, towards the other sentient beings, anybody who's around you, they all to bring peace to others. So that, so from there to the whole world, to others, number of sentient beings. So like that, you see, from Dharma, from the good heart, and that. So so there's nothing, when the death comes, there's nothing to feel sad, only to rejoice, only to feel great happiness, you see. So even when the death comes, you die with great happiness, joy, nothing to regret, feel depressed, sad, like that, you see. So, yeah. So the person who is seeking liberation, state of omniscience, you see, then he need to attend many methods, so many methods, you see, collect medicine, purify development, you see. Then the means to that, you see. And then the omniscient one, you see, who is very skillful, who is extremely skillful, and who has great compassion to us and things. And then explain that even our daily life conduct, by the way, even our daily life conduct, you see, so eating, walking, sitting, sleeping, doing job, so forth, the things that which we normally do. Then, by the way, these activities, not only studying Dharma or doing meditation, all these things, I see, living the morality, and also for the see, many other say virtuous activities do, but even these activities, what you and these small activities, what you normally do, then They see, by the way, they become a thing. So the omniscient one, who is similarly more skillful and with great compassion to us. So then they explain, you see, even these activities that what we now do become a method to collect unfathomable virtue. So that was in skies of means of collecting skies of merits. So you see, not only beneficial to ourselves, but beneficial to all the synthetics like that. So explain this. The Buddha explained this. As those whose level of mind is lower. So I guess maybe who do not have bodhicitta realization, so they say how particular, I guess, lower minded, you see, about thinking. So everything become, whatever you do, everything become dedicated for others. You see, so yeah, cause of happiness or something like that. So this is something to immediately to practice in the so there's a lamentation, but even other times, break times, all the activities to see as much as possible to do the Bodhicitta and to try to benefit others and the things and to be beneficial to be beneficial making beneficial to all the sentiments. Okay, so that.
Okay. Okay. So just so the takeaway from what I took away from Rinpoche's advice was, it really struck me what he said. He said, by practicing good heart, even for yourself, even if you don't think about anyone else, in day to day, moment to moment, there's happiness even for yourself, a comfortable life, a life without fear, depression, or guilt. All of these things, the package of sufferings, don't happen, right? So just by thinking of others, so what he's saying is just by thinking of others during our actions, right? Whatever actions we do, whether eating, sleeping, doing our job, he said, and walking, etc., so forth and so on. If we dedicated, or our motivation is to whatever we're doing, to do it for the benefit of other beings, and specifically, bodhicitta is that I myself will take on the responsibility of leading each and every being to enlightenment, right? That's the great compassion, right? So if we dedicated with that motivation, then we essentially will be free from suffering. We will not, he says that we will have only great happiness and joy in this life and in all future lives, right? So I'm not sure what more one can ask for. And he said that you have great happiness and joy at the time of death. And I remember Rinpoche said once at a retreat, he said that, like he travels a lot, right? Or used to, at least, and before all this virus stuff happened. And he would be at many airports, and people would just come up to him. They'd never seen him before. They'd never met the Dharma, but they could tell that he was a holy man and an enlightened being. So they would just come up to him and talk, right? And he's always willing to talk. And he said that, I've been to many, he has many students in Hong Kong, and he met people in many, many places, every Russia, in South America, in Europe and Israel, Arab country, everywhere, right? And he said that one common thing he has found among every single person is that there is, at the time of death, there is great fear, right? It's a fear, regardless of how much we think we have practiced and how much we have progressed. There's a great fear that arises at the time of death. And that fear is what propels us to the next life, right? What our mind is, the state of our mind is at the time of death, is what has the biggest impact, right? It says so in the Lam Rim, Lama Tsongkhapa said so, has the biggest impact of what type of life we have in our next life. So one of the great goals in this life, Rinpoche says to all his students, is to gain realization, so that at the time of death we have happiness and joy. Because if we have happiness and joy, then we will gain a fortunate life, right? Whether in the upper realms or whether in the God realms, or whether hopefully in another human life, right? So that's pretty, so what he's saying is that if we have bodhicitta mindfulness, we have this great happiness and joy, not only in this life, not only in all future life, but also at the time of death, without any regret. There is no regret, no reason to feel depressed, no sadness, right? And he spoke about many other benefits. He spoke about how, and you can see in the Lam Rim the benefits of bodhicitta, but you please all the, that's one of the greatest ways to please the Buddhas, right? It mentions also, for example, you are essentially following, when you practice bodhicitta mindfulness, you are following the guru's advice, right? Whoever your guru is, it doesn't matter. If he's a valid guru, then his advice will be to practice bodhicitta. And if you dedicate your life to bodhicitta mindfulness, then you are following the advice of your guru, and that is, pleasing the guru, it says, is the most quickest way, right, to gain merit for the enlightenment of each of our enlightenment, so that we can benefit others. So to pleasing the guru is the quickest way that we can reach our ultimate goal. So there's so many benefits to bodhicitta mindfulness, and he's just bodhicitta. So he's just kind of setting the stage for the specific practices that he suggests. And by the way, I don't remember the text he mentioned at the retreat that you saw. I was there at the retreat where the video was taken in 2009, and he mentioned the text that he used. It was actually an Indian text. It was written in the 700s or something like that. Some great Indian master wrote this text about, how to dedicate your every single act, for the benefit of others. And so that's where he got these from, and then he elaborated on them, right? So, any questions, comments that you might have on what Rinpoche said? Shayla, are you? Oh, okay. All right. Okay, great. It's clear then. Okay, so then I will put the second one. If I can get to the second one. Oh, wait. The second one actually is not a video, but it's a transcript transcript of a video which they don't have. So I will, if you are patient with me a little bit, I will read it to you, and then let's see what if you have any thoughts on them. So he says there are quite a lot of things that come from. Oh, he mentions what the Sutra of Clouds of Sublime Rare Ones. That's the text. And the sublime rare ones are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Some Bodhichitta mindfulness practices are not mentioned here, so I've added them. Okay, so now he talks about the act specifically, what are the things to do, right? So he says, the sutra explained that in the morning when one wakes up, the very first thing to do when one wakes up from sleep is to think, may all sentient beings achieve the Dharmakaya, right? So that, achieve Buddhahood. The minute you wake up, you should think that. Maybe the eyes are still closed. The mind woke up, but the eyes are still closed. You still think that. Then when you get dressed, think, may all sentient beings wear the dress of shyness and shame. By one's own reasoning, there is shyness. The other is shame. And he asked us, the public, because, the students who were there, he says, do you have another word? Because shame and, so if you have taken, if you have, as Lewis has taken, I don't know if Shayla was there or not, but mind and mental factors, right? Shame has a specific meaning in Buddhist terminology. And it well, I will paraphrase, but basically it has a specific meaning, which is, Lewis, why don't you tell us since you were there? Oh, we can't hear you.
Shame is a mental factor that comes to play in preventing you from doing non-virtuous actions because in your own mind you know that it's wrong. Shame is personal as opposed to embarrassment.
Right.
You may not do a negative action because you don't want other people seeing you do it, but shame is the one where you don't do it because you don't want to embarrass yourself by acting negatively.
Right. So it's actually a positive mental factor. Shame is. There are negative mental factors, positive mental factors, and neutral mental factors. There's 51 of them in the enumeration in Buddhist philosophy. And shame is one of the positive mental factors because it prevents us from committing negative acts, right? So that's what he's talking about here. So he says, when you get dressed, you think, may all sentient beings wear the dress of shyness. Shyness here means modesty or humility and so forth and so on, not to proclaim one's greatness or whether in body or speech or mind, whatever it is, right? So shyness and shame. And he says, do you have another word? Student says consideration. Rinpoche says consideration. That is right. Shy and shame, I'm not sure. The reason to cultivate shyness is because then you generally are protected from negative actions. The reason is because without shyness, you have to suffer and cannot achieve realizations if you engage in negative actions. For example, you took the Bodhisattva vow. You made the vow in front of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha and sentient beings. So if one breaks it, one becomes shameless, careless of other beings. So because of others, you practice, So sometimes, for example, one thinks, what would my guru think if he knew that I did this, right? So that's, that has stopped me, for example, in certain cases. So like that, that's the shyness and shame. So when you get dressed, you think, may all sentient beings wear the dress of shyness and shame. And then, for example, so he added certain things which weren't there in the original text, like when you put on a belt, you can think, may sentient beings' minds be bound by the 3 higher trainings, right? Ethics, concentration, wisdom. These are the higher training: morality, concentration, special insight, because that is what is said in the sutra. When you release a belt, think, may the sentient beings be freed from the bondage of karma and delusions. When you lay down to go to bed, think, may the sentient beings achieve the Dharmakaya. Then the same thing when you see a stupa. When you see a stupa or other holy object, think, may all sentient beings achieve the Dharmakaya. May all beings achieve enlightenment quickly. When you stand up, May all sentient beings rise from the oceans of samsaric sufferings. This is these I think, by the way, are in that first text that I sent, the FPMT booklet. The words may not be the same, but that is, they took it from here. May all sentient beings stains of being wicked of nature. Oh, sorry. When you stand up, may all sentient beings rise up from the ocean of samsaric sufferings. And then when you offer incense, you can think, may all sentient beings stains of being wicked in nature be eliminated. May they have scented smell of morality. When you clean, may all sentient beings not engage in bad conduct. May have perfect, beautiful, wonderful conduct. So that is what Konchog Trin, the text, mentioned that Buddha says to think when you clean, when you wipe off the dust or clean the floor. Here, everything is related to bodhicitta. Everything is dedicated to sentient beings. So when you wipe the floor, you're cleaning sentient beings' disturbing thought obscurations. When you eat food, you dedicate that all sentient beings not have delusions. All the 6 root delusion, the 20 and the all the secondary obscurations. When you enter a temple or a gompa or whatever, every time you enter inside, you should think you're bringing all sentient beings into the city of liberation or great enlightenment. When you go out, you can think that you are bringing sentient beings out of the prison of samsara. You are liberating them, and you visualize that and also pray for that. When you open the door of a house, think that you are opening the door of transcendental wisdom gone beyond the world, beyond samsara. That is the mindfulness to practice. When you close a door, think, I am closing the door of samsara for sentient beings. You think that and you pray, may this happen. When you sit down, think you are bringing sentient beings to the heart of enlightenment. Every time you do washing, when you clean your teeth, when washing your body, when washing pots, anytime when washing, think, I'm washing all the stains of delusions of sentient beings. You're washing away all their obscurations. When you clean a room with a vacuum or a broom, think that the vacuum or broom is the antidote to the obscurations. It is the path of wisdom, the whole path from guru devotion up to enlightenment. Then if you're making a fire with wood, think that all sentient beings' delusions are burned away by the fire of transcendental wisdom. Like this, whatever you're doing, always dedicate to sentient beings. Well, making a fire, I don't know how often you make a fire. I do have a wood stove in one of our rooms. And so I do, once in a while make a fire, but I think you can do that even when you like turn on your stove or whatever like that, When you lie down, you put your right hip on the bed and generate, oh, interesting. Okay. When you lie down, you put your right hip on the bed and generate bodhicitta to bring all sentient beings into the sorrowless state. The sorrowless state is liberation. The great sorrowless state is enlightenment, which is what the Buddhas achieve. I don't know. So this obviously is from the original Indian text. I don't know why.
I think, if I may
maybe how the Buddha lies down on his right
yes,
side.
when he died, he died in the lion posture, right hand under his head. Oh.
Right, and that's what Rinpoche, by the way, also says to his students when you go to sleep, to go to sleep in a lion posture. So you lie on your right side, as Lewis said, with your hands under your head, and that's how the Buddha, I think he would also go to sleep like that during his life as well, but certainly when he went to parinirvana. When you're making food in the kitchen, whatever you're cutting, or chopping, like vegetables, meat, onions, whatever, practice the mindfulness that you're cutting all sentient beings' ignorance and delusions with the knife or sword of the wisdom realizing emptiness. You are cutting sentient beings' ignorance and delusions. The knife is like the wisdom, the path, kind of like Manjushri's sword. Or the food is sentient beings' self-cherishing thought, and the sword is bodhicitta. Or you are cutting the root of samsara, self-grasping, by the wisdom realizing emptiness. And before going to bed, what Lama Tsongkhapa did is that he would recite the 35 Buddhas' names 35 times with prostrations. The normal advice in the Lam Rim is to examine the day from the morning time till evening. You go through every action you did, however many actions became virtue, then you rejoice in those. And however many actions became non-virtue, you generally regret and purify them before falling asleep. Lama Tsongkhapa did the 35 Buddhas prayer and recited the names 35 times with prostrations. That makes one very happy, that one is a monk who is completely pure, and so then one can go to sleep very happily. That is mentioned by Kachin Yeshe Galtsen in his Lam Rim teachings. The best one, even if one cannot do a long version of a self-initiation, is to do a middle or short one, or even a long one. If you have done retreat, that is the best one to do before going to bed, or do Vajrasattva with the 4 opponent powers and then go to sleep with a very happy mind. That is how to make life meaningful, the happiest. It is like that. So at the end, when he talked about self-initiation, so he's talking about if you've had highest yoga tantra initiation, part of that is the generation of the deity's body, right? So or rising as the deity. So that's the practice he said to do, because then you are going to sleep not in your ordinary body, but in the divine, with the divine body, right? So that's up to you if you have had that initiation or any initiation with any of the deities. Otherwise, he says to do Vajrasattva with the 4 opponent powers, and of course Lama Tsongkhapa did the 35 Buddha prostrations, right? Either of them are just as good. So those are kind of, and that's in that FPMT booklet. Those are the kind of things that it's so what is interesting. I remember thinking this when I was there at this retreat, and when he mentioned all these things, and I guess he'd been thinking about them for a long time, and he'd been, and then he decided to talk about it with the students. Every single action can become, there's just nothing that we are doing in our daily life, right, that doesn't become Dharma. And because anything that we do with Bodhicitta, is the right motivation. And anything that we do with right motivation is Dharma, right? Because if you remember the teachings in karma, the motivation is the first thing, right? So any action becomes virtuous, even neutral actions, right? Like going to sleep becomes virtuous, right? Sleep is, it's a neutral action, right? Or brushing our teeth becomes virtuous. So, and that's why if you have taken vows, right, the lay vows, for example, that's why the teachers always say that taking the vows makes, because you're living in the vow, and that means that you already have a set motivation. Every action, even neutral, becomes, every action through your entire life, if you're keeping the vows, becomes positive, virtuous, right? That's an easy way to accumulate karma constantly when we're brushing our teeth, washing the dishes, even if you don't think that may all sentient beings, wash away their obscurations and so forth and so on. Living in the vow makes it positive, makes it virtuous, right? So it's an easy way, to have happiness in this life and all future lives. But in any case, that's a vow, that's a different. But here he's talking about specifically just having that motivation in each of these actions. And he met, there's actually like, and I expect that he will say this in one of the other videos, but even when you go to the potty, like he mentioned that, if you go, when you go into the potty, because I think he mentions the Lord of Death, Yama, right, is so I do that sometimes. I don't remember all the time, I have to say, but I do remember sometimes. I'll think the Lord Yama is underneath the toilet, and so forth and so on, and he is satisfies him, and so that he so you and others will live a long life, and so forth and so on, right? So like that, it's interesting. And I do know some, like I will mention a story a friend of mine, he, long story short, in the middle of the night, he was in the bathroom and he was in great pain, and he thought that this might be it, right? He was in great pain and he thought he was going to die because the pain was so intense. And he said that and he fainted. I mean, of course, he lived to tell the tale, and he fainted. But right before he fainted, when he was thinking he was going to die, he remembered Rinpoche's words, and he said, whatever happens may be for the benefit of others, right? So I think that's really powerful, right? So essentially, these practices made him think. It was just automatic, right? Whatever he was doing, fainting, which I would expect is a neutral action, right, became positive. And if he had died, he would have, that was a wonderful way to die, as Rinpoche says, in happiness and joy with the right motivation, right? And so and he said that he was thinking, as he was feeling the pain, that I'm feeling the pain, that my pain is so great to me, but other beings must be feeling so much more pain. And so, may their pain be relieved, right? He thought, he was thinking that, and then he fainted, right? And, and he was thinking that made for the benefit of others. So it really you can see that it really makes a difference if one makes the effort, right? And I think that's what he's trying to say, is that, we just have to make the effort. He just tries to always, what's the word? Exhort, yes. Exhort his students to practice these simple techniques, because that's what will get us there. Any comments? Any specific actions that, and he's going to have more to say, but specific actions that he didn't cover that you could help with on mindfulness? What type of thing? What to think?
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to add that in another location, he also said that with dying with compassion is the best way of dying, because then you have control over the whole death process.
Yes. And as an aside, since Louis we're talking about dying, so the other thing he mentioned is that to prepare for dying, the best preparation for dying, he said, is of course sleep, right? Sleep, sleep is we go through the same states of the death process, right? The death absorptions, and you can read about them, the various stages we go through. And sleep are the same stages except in reverse order. So sleep is a great time to practice the time of death, because otherwise, at the time of death is not, we're not going to remember any of this, right? So to recognize as we're falling asleep, the various stages that we're going through, if you're mindful, I'm unfortunately, most of us are not, but we can train our minds to go through the different levels of sleep and death. And so you can recognize the stages, and you can then think about if you're mindful of those stages and you recognize them, then at death, you will also be able to, regardless of how much pain you're in, you'll be able to recognize it, and then know what to think, what to think during those stages, right? So that great fear does not arise. So that's one thing he mentioned, is sleep. In Tantra, of course, there are techniques, sleep yoga, on how to do that. But in any case, and then the other thing he mentioned also is that another easy thing one can do to prepare for death is, when going to sleep, you can bring an image of a holy object to mind, whether it's your guru or I have a particular statue of the Buddha that, that I always found extremely, I don't know, inspiring. So I have that kind of committed to memory, if you will, right? And so you can have that visualization in your mind as you're falling asleep, and then of course on your right in the lion posture, right? So that's what he advises, in the lion posture, and you have that visualization as you fall asleep, so that that's the last thing will be on your mind as you fall asleep or as you die, right? Because that's the training, right? Because at the time of death, we have to train during life, otherwise at the time of death we're not going to remember remember that visualization and so forth and so on. So that's the other thing he also mentioned to his students, to have a good, to have a mindful death. So that's another easy way to train our minds. Anyway, anything else? Boy, you guys are a quiet bunch. Okay. So the next one what's the next chapter? Right. So then he goes into more detail. Okay, so now he goes more detail about how to go to sleep with bodhicitta, right? So let me share that, and you will also see the transcript. Share my screen. Okay, so you should be able to see it now. Oops. Where'd it go? Okay, here we go.
It is mentioned in the Lamrim teachings, which Lama Zopa have explained, and the Lamrim teachings what is explained. The sleeping yoga. So it is mentioned sutra that when one go to bed, then you go out and you wash your feet. Then you come back inside, and then you put your right leg on the left leg. You see, sorry, left leg on your right leg. Then you see. In the sleep like snow line. So that's what I mentioned sutra. So like that, then in the position of the snow line laying down, then you hold well the light, illumination, the light. Your mind to hold well. You see. Then, so why is that? It's so that you don't get a very heavy, thick sleep. So that it's easy to get up in the early morning. You see, so you're not controlled by very heavy sleep. So easy to able to get up in the early morning to practice Dharma. So physically lay down with this snow line laying down. Then mind hold the light. Then you see then virtue thought, and the remembrance of the meditation. See, so one must rely on these three: the light, and then the virtue thought, and the remembrance of the meditation. See, you hold on that. You see, until one falls asleep. So this. Other than that, then when you're about to go to sleep, then you must have a very strong thought, strong courage, a strong thought. You see, that you will get up. without delaying the time. So you see, so good. I mean, morning CD. Say, I mean, so I think as soon as go to bed from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, so somewhere, and then work, then get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, then you see to practice. So the attendant get up at 3 o'clock and to offer the see things, offer service. So I have 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever. So to not get late, to not get the courage, you see, to get up. So without very heavy sleep. So of course in the West, the very completely total heavy sleep is of course the best. Completely total. So that last night I have fantastic. Last night I have fantastic sleep. Unbelievable time. So anyway, just an example. Another way of looking at it. So as I mentioned, Lam Rimden should have that thought, you see, kind of courage, you see, without having said that, without delay from the time to get up, you see, to that. Then with the fear, like the animal, you see, with the fear, using example, the animals like deers, those animals, see, when they sleep at night time, they're very light sleep. They was in the forest, in the jungles, you see, very light sleep. So that light sleep, the ears keep up, light sleep, so that when the enemy, when other animals, so they attack, you see. So very easy to, as I wake up, it's run, so very light sleep. With the ears up, you see that. So sleep like that, you see. It's just so easy to run, you see, when the enemy comes. So that you see, with the fear, like that. So here, with the fear, say, that you might have opportunity, you might miss opportunity to practice Dharma, so that to not get late, you see. So that's so if you lay down by remembering Buddha when Buddha was passing away. When the Buddha was passing away, and so let's say, you see, the one showing that holy deeds. So Buddha was in the position, singing out the lion, you see, snow lion laying down, you see, and that position then show the holy deeds pass, and so let's say. So like that, you see, one lay down. So then if you do that, so like this, if you do that, you see, that and then what was mentioned before. So if you do that, remember Buddha when you go to bed. Then you see there are benefits, by the way, when you are in sleep. Even when you are in sleep, you don't forget Buddha. You don't forget Buddha. Remember Buddha, and also during the sleep, your mind is not free. Your mind doesn't get separated from the virtue. You see that good benefit. That you are taking the essence day and night, like that. You see, Then the third benefit is then you don't get a very heavy, like the pig sleep, the animal pig sleep. Anyway, you don't get a very heavy sleep. And then number four, you see even the dream, you don't have the very heavy need karma has a you don't dream those things. Those dreams doesn't happen. Souls, nightmares, those things, because you sleep in the Buddha in a position, so they like this, you see. That helps to also helps protection, like that. Then even during the sleep, then you see, even during sleep, you are able to practice virtue, even during the sleep. Then that helps when you die. When you die also, you are able to, die, but in this position, it's not lying down. See, positions like, remember Buddha, Buddha passed. Then you see, and that helps, you see, even that position helps to not get about Lord limbs. So, yeah, stop there. Then you see, this is the general. Then there's the according to the law of Tantra, then you see yourself deity, the mental deity, and the guru is in the deity. In the presence of the guru, that you see, so that sleeping with the creativity like that, uncreativity coming, then they absorb to the sleep loop. So it is in this mantras. For example, Genesis, then she dissolve, gradually and then non-object fine. And so you mention emptiness, so it falls asleep like that. So however, then you rise up. You feel like if you when sleep in the non-creativity, you get up from you remember the next morning non-creativity, then you rise in the deities for that. Then the high tantra practice also, then you mention Dharma Kaya, then you see, and you fall asleep, and then you see that, then you rise up from that. As I mentioned that, as I mentioned, see, then from Dharma Kaya, all the Dakinis, they play music, and then they make you say, pursue you to rise. Then they say these words, you see, they express this, they say these words, which Kyabje Lama Zopa mentioned. So that you see, so by absorbing the thing, then syllable, whatever syllables absorbed, then Dhamma. So that, okay. So it is a. So before going to bed, what Lama Tsongkhapa does is he recites 35 Buddha, 35 Buddha, 35 Buddha, 35 Buddha 35 times with prostration. Then you see, so normal advice in the Lamrim. So you from morning time, you examine the day. which actions, how you go through every action, how many become virtue, how many become non-virtue, how many virtue you find, you rejoice, how many become non-virtue, then you say, regulate, and then to purify before you fall, before you go to bed, you see. So Lama Tsongkhapa, so do that for the prayer, the Buddha's name recite 35 times with the procession. Then you see, then you make very happy. Get on number takwa. You know, I am monk that's completely pure. So you make like that, you see, then go to sleep very happily. So Lama Tsongkhapa, it is mentioned by Kachin Yalzan in his Lam Room teachings. So however, then of course, best one is even one kind of long version, self-initiation. There's middle version, short, then there's short version, self-initiation. If you have done the retreat, and that's of course the best one before going to bed. Before sleeping then. And this was Bodhisattva, practice. So really make, say, it was the powers completely clean, completely purify. A very, very happy mind. You see, then go to sleep like that. Like that to say, to making how to make the say life, you see, so meaningful, happiest. So that.
I think the end of that video was, it was part of the previous, when I was reading that first part. But anyway, yeah, I think, so that's all, I think, I'm not sure I have anything to add to what Rinpoche said, but basically, I think it's important to remember the benefits, as you said, that when you are asleep, you do, what are the benefits? I think, but when you are asleep, you do not forget the Buddha. You remember the Buddha. Your mind doesn't get separated from virtue, so are taking the essence day and night. Then he says you don't sleep very heavily like a pig sleep. And the fourth benefit is in your dreams, you won't create very heavy negative karma. So you won't have nightmares and so forth and so on. So yeah, and then being in the lion posture, he says, even helps you not get reborn in the lower realms. And then he talked about what to do if you've had tantric, if you're on the tantric path. So that's So anything, any questions, or we're at the end anyway? But any questions or comments about the sleep portion?
Yes, you just said that during sleep you can create negative karma. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I knew somebody was going to ask me that.
There's lots of them.
Yeah, I've heard both ways. I've heard, it's a matter of interpretation. I don't know what the word is, interpretation. I mean, Rinpoche certainly knows what he's talking about, so I can't specifically say that you do or you don't create negative karma. I've heard both sides of it, or different teachers say different things. I suspect what he means, I guess the real question is, if you're killing somebody in your dream, is that a real negative? Are you creating negative karma or not? Right? And certainly if you do create negative karma, it's not a complete karma, right? Because remember, to complete, there's four factors when you completion of karma, right? Number one, you have to have the motivation. Number two, you have to, motivation. You have to, the action, like if you're killing, if I'm trying to kill Lewis and I kill Shayla by mistake, that's not a complete, so I have the person I've directed the action towards, that's the person who should have gotten it. That's the third one. The last one is that I will have, I'm happy that I did it, right? I'm glad Lewis is dead, right? Like that. And there's one other one, which I can't remember, the second one, which I can't remember.
The object, you have to have an object.
Oh, yes, you have to have an object. Thank you. So in a dream, you don't certainly, if you're going to sleep with bodhicitta in mind, you certainly don't have the motivation, right? So your virtuous motivation, even if you have a dream that you're killing someone. So that's one thing. And of course, you're not completing the action, right? Lewis is still going to be alive. So you don't, even if you do create some negative karma, it's not you haven't completed it. So it's not a throwing karma, as they say, right? It's not going to create you're not going to have a negative rebirth. You can have other negative things happen, but it's not going to be a throwing karma that is going to throw you into your next life. That's what throwing karma means, right? It won't throw you into your lower life. Yes, Louis.
The only thing I was going to add is you were talking about killing, but maybe the negative karma is actually the anger itself that's involved in dreaming of killing.
Right.
The negative karma would be the anger, not necessarily the karma of.
That's right. That's why you will have created some negative karma, but not the throwing karma, right? You will have created, like other kinds of environmental karma and so forth and so on. And that's all in the Lamrim. You can look that up. So the answer to your question, Shayla, is that's all I can say. When Rinpoche says you're creating negative karma, you must be creating negative karma. So, but it's not a completing karma. But if you have bodhicitta mindfulness before you go to bed, then you don't even have that, right? That's what he's basically saying, because your sleep becomes a virtuous sleep, right? And of course, if you've had, he says if you're according to lower tantra, you go to sleep as the mandala deity, as the deity. And of course, the guru and the deity are the same, right? So that's important to remember. And then if you are, or you can go to sleep by using, by meditating on the deity's seed syllable, right? Or the deity's mantra, right? So Om Mani Padme Hum, for example, if Chenrezig, if you have attraction to Chenrezig, and then you meditate on emptiness, right? And so that's without creativity. Creativity, that's a technical term, but creativity in tantra. But if you're going to meditate, and so you meditate, that's called meditating. That's going to without creativity, and in the morning, you arise as the deity, right? And that's in general the tantra advice anyway. That you have that divine pride and you arise as the deity, and whatever actions you're doing is as the deity, right? So that you are always trying to do virtuous actions. Anything else? One thing I'll mention is that I heard the story about Reba Rinpoche. I don't know if you're Reba Rinpoche was a great, one of those high lamas. He passed away in the late 90s, I think, maybe early 2000s, but late 90s, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so I heard the story from one of his students, and Reba Rinpoche was Lama Yeshe's teacher as well as His Holiness's teacher and so forth. So he was a great high being. Anyway, so he mentioned this as he was dying of cancer, I believe. And of course, he mentioned this to his attendant or one of his Western students, I think. He said my body is in great pain. And he said, I can barely remember any of my mantras, right? Now, I'm not sure that's true. He was giving a teaching to his student. But when he was relating it to me, he said that basically the lesson he got from it and other students got from it is that if someone like Rinpoche is having trouble remembering the mantra, can you imagine what our minds must be like at the moment of death when we are in great pain, right? So the teaching is to train ourselves during this life so that, our minds, we will be able to recall the teachings at the time of death, right? So I think that's the, so anyway, I just wanted to mention that because it came to me. So yeah. Anyway, so let's end today, and then next time, let's see what's on tap for next time around. Let's see. So next time he will talk about how to bathe with bodhicitta, and that's actually, it's a long practice. There's lots of mantras and things like that. You can how to eat with bodhicitta, how to set the motivation, right? And that's important. Then he talks about tonglen mindfulness, right? How to do tonglen, right? The taking and giving. And so that's the last one, right? So there's a lot of really helpful stuff, that we can do to practice in our daily life. I think it really comes in, it's really good advice. So anyway, so let's end with our prayers. Okay. Let me share my screen again. Okay. Oh, sorry. So, due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Let's do his, his long life prayer. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, savior of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. So I'll stop there, but one quick thing I'll mention, since these teachings are taken from some of his retreats, and specifically this one is from the Light of the Path retreat, which happens, well, he used to do it every year before COVID, in North Carolina, in the mountains of North Carolina. Beautiful place. So next year's, if you are interested, next year's will happen in September, I heard. You can go online and into his schedule and see when it is, but I'm not sure. So in any case, it'll be in September. And I believe they're going to do it online next year. So because of COVID and all that. So I strongly recommend or encourage you to get the teachings directly from him if you are able. So yeah. Okay, and Lewis, a lot of people from Florida, especially the Deerfield Beach Center, I used to come to the retreat. So if it happens live, show up. It's only a hop, skip, and a jump. I'm sure you can get a ride with them. So there you go.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. See you next time. See you next week. Happy New Year.